Book Club is back, and it's all psychedelic haze here. Woo. How you doing?
I'm chilling. How are you?
I mean, I'm living the Jenny Frizen life this week.
I should probably change the color of my light to match the background.
Ooh. If you're new to Book Club, welcome in. We are always talking about some new book, usually an issue number 1 that we want to talk to you about and share our thoughts on in a deep dive. This week, we are talking about a new Boom Studios book called Luna, number 1. I did get the Jenny Frizen cover that is our background right now because
my shop was sold out of the Jenny Frizen, which is to be expected, but I still think the A cover is pretty darn nice.
Yep. Maria Lovett is the artist, writer, and, of course, cover A artist as well. Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming and hanging out with us. Old Wolf, you were first. So congratulations. Let's see here. Nice statue. Thank you. I just did a statue unboxing of Thor here from Ragnarok. You can check that out later. Not now. Old Wolf is always first, but Chaos... It's always glad to have a little chaos around here. Hello to Jennifer from Comic Books Will Break Your Heart. She's a big indie fan, so I'm sure she's grabbed a copy of Luna as well. Brandon is back. How's it going, man? Comics Kings. I read Deep Beyond, and I'm happy to crap on that for you if you like, but it's not our book tonight. Southern Comic Geek says, good choice on the Rye Zero. Hey, this is a Daymare's gift. It's even got the Rye Valiant special label going on there.
I should have put my Rye Zero behind me too.
Herminio Reyes Jr., hello and happy new comic book day to you, man. Oh, missed out on the Frizen. I went Frizen.
Me too.
Frizen Wild.
Yeah, I got the Wonder Woman, but I missed out on Luna.
Love a good Jenny Frizen cover if you can find them. Always special. So we are going to talk about Luna. We both read Wonder Woman, I believe.
Yep.
I read Deep Beyond, which I will happily tell you is a mess. And then Alec also read something else, I think.
The Maniac of New York, new Aftershock book.
Which I was talking to No Good Comics about. And there he is. He's in the chat. Just in time, like we knew he was coming. I knew a kid, and I'm not even joking. Knew a kid on my baseball team named Just in Case.
His parents knew what they were doing.
Right, they played it right. So let's talk a little Luna. I will say I'm a Boom Studios fan. Even this year, even 2020, where they had not as many great new number 1s, I still feel like they're on a real great trajectory as a company, and the books they're dropping have been very impressive. So I was very excited for a number 1 from Maria Lovett, who, for those that don't know, she did Faithless, which with Brian Azzarello, they wrapped story 1 and now they're prepping story 2.
Story 2 has been out for it might have even finished by now.
Oh, wow. Okay.
There have been a few issues for sure.
I'm way behind.
Yeah.
Which we did Faithless number 1 for Book Club. So
which I am a fan of Faithless, not just for the pervy witch sex stuff, but I just think it's a quality, mysterious book. And I'm a fan of Azzarello. I'm a fan of Maria Lovett. So it's a great book. Check it out if you don't.
Looks like Brandon's saying, hey, if you need a Frizen cover, he can check and hook you up. So
very cool. Appreciate it. But
so what did you what are your first early thoughts here on Luna? How would you score it? What are your initial feelings?
Gorgeous. Like I thought it was a feast for the eyes. Again, I'm a fan of this artist. She's one of those people that's clearly not for everybody because it's very stylized. It's a little messy. So people who like really tight, like Jim Lee style comic drawing are probably not going to like this. I mean, you can like both. That's fine. But I have a big issue with this book, which I have pretty much every week. So clearly this is my problem and not the comics problem, because when it becomes a pattern like this, it has to be something that I am seeing that's in a way that's wrong. Yeah. Old Wolf says he wants to see a panel.
Yeah. I don't mind doing it if you want.
I got it.
Okay.
So this is like the second page of the book. It's a huge splash page. Thought it was very cool.
Her style it's not an unfinished style, but it is a very sort of raw.
It's loose, yeah. A lot of this book we cannot show because it is rather sexual. Especially
the second half, I would say, towards the end. The first half's, not as bad.
I think we can show that, like, there's another just random page. It's cool, and there's like a lot of like a little extra flowery things and stuff around the borders. It just kind of fills up the page. I thought, just cool.
Yeah, you're mentioning that. I do really dig the way she uses the panels or explodes out of the panels from time to time. Yeah. So I've been impressed with her use of the space, and that you shared this splash panel,
which is just crazy. And that was, that's the second page of the book. So it really kind of
blows away. Yeah.
Yeah. Really kind of doesn't waste any time.
So then what would you overall score this one?
I don't know, maybe a 7.5. My issue that I have is, once again, pacing. This moves so fast. I think the story is really interesting and intriguing, but like there was so much opportunity to slow things down, to extend this kind of suspense and the weariness and the strangeness. And, again, I think it's an issue with the industry as a whole at the moment, where they have to get you hooked at this first issue, and they have to have this big reveal at the end of the book, and to kind of get you to buy the second issue. And so to get there in this story, so much had to be told to get to the point where it made sense to reveal what they reveal at the end, that, if this were a 3-issue arc, it could have been so moody and creepy and uncomfortable, and like it probably would have been like a high 9 for me. But the way it's told, it's just like boom, 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 and you never get a chance to really catch your breath or take in the strangeness, or even like what the situation is that the characters found herself in, which we will talk about, I'm sure.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We'll get into the nitty gritty. Absolutely. Yeah. And I can see what you're saying about fast, because there's a ton of story that happens in this one issue, and it feels like a hefty book.
Yeah. It was.
But I'll also say I felt like there was a ton of time spent on the abstract, because the story has several sort of amorphous elements that are nicely expressed through Maria's art style, whether it's that spread page or just moments where you're not sure how lucid the characters are and what they're seeing or experiencing. So this takes overall score for me, I would say this is about an 8. I definitely enjoyed it, and like you're saying, the art is really strong. I don't know that I love it or that I'm super attached to it at this point, but I do find myself intrigued by the characters and the story at this point.
Yeah.
Looks like Jennifer is agreeing it went fast. Wish we learned more about characters early on. Justin's asking, this is set to be a 5-issue series? I don't know. I am not certain on any of that.
Yeah, and the point about learning more about the character early on, I think, is a great point too, because not only does the plot move fast, you never really get a chance to connect with the main character. You never get a chance to really know who she is, or a sense of her personality, or she just kind of like is there to further the plot and like bring you along on the story, but like I don't know who she is at all.
Which is fair. I mean, like I have that problem with a lot of books, whether they're indies or not, where you feel like things are happening quickly and I get a sense of the setting, but not necessarily core elements for the character. That was my huge complaint about We Only Find Them When They're Dead. I've read the first arc. I still legitimately don't necessarily know much about the characters.
And that can be fine, right? It's not a rule that the characters have to be the focus. Plot can be the focus, and that can be really successful. But this in particular feels like it's a story that should be a focus on the character. And maybe that's misdirection. Maybe it's going to be very plot driven. But when you have someone who you follow through the whole issue and who narrates some parts, then you feel like this is supposed to be a story about her.
Right.
And, you know, spoiler for Game of Thrones, you thought that was going to be a story about Ned Stark, but, you know, so things can happen. I get it. But,
so the plot, let's get into that a little bit. We have a young lady waking next to a car wreck in the desert, having a bit of a dream sequence, and then awakening in a room with sort of this young hippie sort of lady sitting over her, taking care of her, and comes to find out she's in like a commune. There are 4 women and a guru-like character named Lux. And they're all living out in the desert, but somehow have a ton of vegetation in and around their shacks. They've been taking care of her, and they tell her that they don't have like a phone or anything, but that there's a supply truck van that comes by, and that they'll take care of her until the next van comes. And then
she was in a car accident.
Yeah. So she's spending some time with these ladies and this guy and experiencing their world and having psychedelic experiences of some sort or another, whether it's the weird vegetation, these people, or the actual setting where they are, or hallucinogens that they're using pretty consistently. This experience seems to have some kind of an effect on the lead character, to the extent that she starts sort of lusting after this character Lux, and the issue culminates in an experience between the two of them that is very physical, but also
it's a little out of hand.
Gets way out of hand with some bloodletting and some imagery that implies a creepy, one-eyed, shackled character that is at the core of the energy in this cartoon.
So there's a cave that is supposed to be this mystical cave that they're not allowed to go into, and that's when the main character is being shown around. She is taken to this cave, but says we can't go in. That's when she has one of her experiences where she kind of like sees things and something is speaking to her telepathically or whatever. Then Lux later tells her that he got lost in the cave when he first got there and was lost for days. And when he finally came out, he had transcended in a way. So this is when they're about to get down to business. And then he says, hold on, I have something special for you. And she's like, oh, is it weed? And he's like, oh, not quite. And he opens up this little bag that has a vial and an eyeball in it. He then puts the stuff on her tongue, which is one of my favorite points in the whole story, because it slows down and you get like a whole page of just this anticipation of this drop about to fall into her tongue and her reaction to it. Which, again, if that had been done more in this story, I feel like it would have been much more successful, because these 2 pages are the best part of this whole book, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really cool sequence where you're just like, what is Rocky Horror Picture Show?
Yeah.
And just patient.
So at which point she starts like really zoning out and going into this other plane of thought, and
all the crazy eyeballs that she's seeing. Yeah.
So she starts seeing this guy with the one eye, and then Lux kind of takes this knife to her neck and starts drinking her blood, and then makes her drink his blood, and then it ends with her speaking to or hearing from this character who is the one-eyed chained up person, assuming that he is somewhere in the cave. So really you end the issue not knowing what is going on at all, which is fine because it's mysterious and it's meant to be that way. But I really don't know what the book's about yet. But yeah, I just wish it were slower. Just pace it out. Just because all those scenes, the scene with her waking up and being in this hippie commune of sorts, it's just like she wakes up and she's like, I should draw what I saw because my grandmother told me to do that. Oh, what? I'm going outside. No, okay. Hey, everybody. Nice to meet you, man. Oh, why don't you go take a tour of the... It's like, oh, let me see this cave. Oh, look at the cave. Now, what was that? It's like just... You look at movies like that are really successful in this type of genre, of this type of like trippy dippy, like what's going on, suspense, but in a way that's not like someone stalking you, a suspense of not knowing. I think one of my favorite horror movies is from Dario Argento, Suspiria. And so much of that movie is just like shots of people like walking towards a door, and like you don't know what's going to happen when they get to the door, and then nothing happens when they get to the door, but the way it's shot makes you think something's going to happen, so it builds the suspense that pays off when something does happen.
Right.
But he takes, and Dario Argento is, problematic and very inconsistent in his direction, but that movie I felt is very successful, so yeah, it just, if she had taken a similar approach and taken these scenes with her waking up and finding this commune and could have done just like a page and a half of just these series of shots of these like women's faces kind of like staring at her, uncertainly. And then you're like, oh, what are they going to do to her? And then they're friendly, but it builds that suspense and that uncertainty for when the guy stabs her in the neck and drinks her blood.
Yeah, I mean, I think the genre we're discussing here is suspense in some ways. And I think when you look at quality suspense writing and whether it's film, TV, or comics, that pace matters a ton. And people like Hitchcock, who could draw something out, could do a whole movie in a 1-bedroom apartment or whatever and make it riveting.
Yeah.
Or do an entire, take something like Rope, and it's just people talking. The whole movie is just, it's a play. It's just people talking, but make the suspense palpable the whole time.
TJ says obscure movie much. Yeah, I'm a pretentious hipster. Should know that by now.
You've watched our channels.
Yeah. So yeah. It is, I would say, fascinating in concept, executed wonderfully visually,
but not so much storytelling.
But it just, for me, it missed the mark with pacing, which again, what you were just saying is probably the most important part of a suspense story.
I mean, any kind of suspense, horror, whatever. I think the really talented filmmakers doing those kind of movies could drag that excitement out. I mean, something like Halloween or whatever with Carpenter, he could draw that.
Basically, nothing happens in Halloween for 75% of the movie.
Absolutely.
But it's super scary.
Yeah.
Because you just see this. It's about the stalking of Jamie Lee Curtis. It's not about the murders. It's about her dealing with this guy who she keeps seeing and that is hiding in the yard. And then every movie just became like, how many kills can we get in the movie?
Well, I think sometimes those filmmakers don't learn the lessons when they come to their sequels or whatever. You look at, Nightmare on Elm Street or whatever. By the time you start getting to the sequels, it's just like, let's just give them more.
Yeah.
And I think we're in a more culture.
Yeah, it's like, how can we outdo ourselves? How can we make the kills bigger? And really, like, all of the best horror movies do less.
Yeah, I mean, and I think, filmmakers who have those boundaries on them where they have to make do with what they've got, they get creative and they tell a story that is more measured and more paced. For me, I think I'll probably get issue 2 just because I want to see where this story goes a little further. But I did the same with Faithless, and I only got 2 or 3 issues deep before I was like, nah, I'm good.
Yeah.
So we'll see here.
Yeah, I mean, if there's another really cool Frizzen cover and I can get my hands on issue 2, maybe. But otherwise, I'll wait and check it out and trade if it turns out to be something really cool.
Yeah, I was going to say I might be able to check, but I don't know if I can find.
I don't know if they have those out yet, but.
Let's see. What is this week? The 3rd? Yeah, let's see here. We got Luna. Where are you at? Luna, where are you at? And then issue 2. I just see an Merca Undolpha variant.
Yeah, well, that's pretty cool too.
Yeah, it's all right, I suppose. I can screen share if you want to see it. Sure, I'm sure the audience is like, well, why do you guys get to see it? We don't get to see it.
Yeah.
What the heck, man? How's that? There you go. Let me click on it, blow it up there. There you go.
Yeah, I don't need that.
Yeah, I'm not impressed by it. It looks very computer generated to me.
Yeah, totally.
So, there you go.
All right. Well, fair enough. So then I guess it's going to be a pass for me.
Borinkin Comics is here. What is up, brother? How you doing? I'm sorry. I don't know what's going on here. Why can't I click on comments anymore? It's like freaking out. Whoa, lost it. Yikes. I lost it. It jumped on me there. Borinkin, good to see you, man. How's it going? So there you go, Luna. Hey, 23 minutes and we're done.
Yeah, we're going to talk about Wonder Woman.
Yeah, let's talk about the other Jenny Frison covered book that came out this week.
So first thing I want to say about it is that I will I can just look at anything that
Joelle Jones.
That old Joelle Jones draws because, man, she is good at drawing.
This is 2 for 2 in that topic. Great Jenny Frison cover and quality interior art.
Future State Wonder Woman's got a dump truck too.
Let me blow that up here. Yes, she does.
Pow.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's the Latin.
Worth reading just to look at the art because the stuff with Hades and those 3 demons and her diving into the pit of souls and
this book is gorgeous.
It's so cool to look at.
Yeah. I loved like this. Here, let me do where I'm at. Let's do it this way. When she's going down into with all the hands grabbing her.
Amazing page.
So cool. Her face right there, the tears.
Yeah.
I just love it. But let's let's start off grade wise. What are your feelings on this one? Yeah.
Artwork, like 9.5 out of 10. Knocked it out of the park. As an issue of a comic, like I liked it. I liked it better in the first issue, actually. And so I'd give it like probably an 8. Again, though, it's not only is it an issue for pacing for me. So this is a 2-issue series.
Yes.
The first issue felt like it took so long to get to the place it got to, and this issue had so much packed into a single issue. Like, I feel like they could have spread it out a little bit and made some of what happened in this issue in the first issue, so this had a little more room. And also, like, for how comedic the first issue and the first few pages of this issue were, to then take like such a left turn to being super serious was kind of weird for me.
And I would say that was my big complaint. I would probably give this the same, probably an 8.5.
Because the art just carries it.
The art is incredible. I like the characters, very interesting. But I think the bigger issue for me was less about pacing. It was just like a really inconsistent tone.
Inconsistent tone, yeah.
And there was a lot of weird inconsistencies, and it jumped around a lot. And I think they were trying to make her fun instead of making her impactful. And I think that some of the moments when they were trying to be funny or they were trying to make it really light didn't land. And the emotional stuff, I think, came a lot closer to landing, and I think would have been more impactful if they were able to like back off of the weird, not like, so funny moments.
The thing about the funny moments were that like she could have been fun loving and like a little sassy, but she was almost like Ace Ventura-esque in some of the like, it really pushed the boundaries of like how absurd she was at points. Like when she steals the Riverman's arm to throw at Cerebus to like,
but then like never has to deal with the consequences of that. The river guy's like,
yeah, I'll still take you across, no big deal.
No hand, no problem. Yeah, the dump truck, man. Every time I pass that page, there's a booty.
But so for me, here's the bigger question. What the hell is Future State? Like, I've only read these 2 issues in the first issue of the Batman book.
The Dark Detective.
But
no, you read Next Batman, sorry.
Yeah. But like this, like, what was the point of this? In the grand scheme of things, I mean. Looks like Herminio is saying that
that
she's getting her own book in May.
I think
like, how is that going to work in continuity? Because this is supposed to be way in the future. So does she go back to the past, or does Wonder Woman just jump to the future? Is it just 2 different timelines, that there are going to be 2 different Wonder Woman books?
And I think basically this is where I fall. We know they were, you know, DC's having money troubles. They had this big event planned. They launched the idea. The money troubles get worse, and the fan reaction is like anger. So they scramble to truncate what they were going to do and mix in stuff that they think will make the fans happier, and that's what we get.
Here's the thing, though. I'm going to solve all of DC's problems right now. You ready? Write better comics.
That seems hard.
Yeah. The reason people don't buy DC much anymore is because most of the books are garbage. They're just like stuck in the past. They aren't like, when they try to do something new and different, they just really ham-fist it. And their continuity is bananas.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I'm going to say this for all the fans of his, but Scott Snyder has ruined DC. Because he's just done too much weird crap that they have focused their whole line around that hasn't paid off in any way.
Yeah. Luna doesn't seem to be related to Faithless Borinkin, but who knows? Maybe they'll tie it together somehow. But I don't know that Azarella is going to let Maria just tell her own story in his universe. I don't know how that's going to play out. But I totally agree. And yeah, I also agree 5G future state, this blend makes the same problems you're talking about with Snyder worse. I'm sorry not to be a big Snyder love letter kind of guy. I mean, he did 2 really good trades, and then I have not enjoyed the rest of the stuff he's made. And I feel like the DC that I'm reading each month it bears little resemblance to the DC universe I loved.
Yeah. And it's, make no mistake, I'm not faulting Scott Snyder for it, because I think he is a good writer in a vacuum. But I think that is the case for so many writers. Like, it is incredibly difficult to write a comic universe. And people dunk on Bendis all the time, but he did it fairly well at Marvel. Whether or not what you like what he did, like, he managed to keep it going and have it make sense. And I think Jeff Johns did a great job, but that was just Green Lantern. I mean, it's a big universe, but it's a sub-universe. But I mean, look at, Donny Cates is like trying his thing right now, but it's hit or miss at times. And it's just like, not everyone who's a good writer should just be handed a universe, because it is a huge, huge task.
I mean, you look at Hickman. I mean, he's trying to do it with the whole
X-Men,
and it's not consistent. It's hard.
It started off super strong, and now it's falling apart at the seams, because
I'm going to argue that it's not, but I definitely have issues with some of the writers because he's not doing it all himself. He's got a stable of writers that he's trying to manage, and they're all doing their own thing. And that's the whole. That's not that. There's a talent for writing, sure. There's a talent for art, and there's a talent for managing people, and that's all got to come together in one place.
Yeah, and I totally agree. So you can have Hickman be like, you need to treat it like a hierarchy. So Hickman is the writer who's in charge of X-Men, right? You then have him write X number of X books, no pun intended. So you have him write Uncanny and whatever else. And then you have the other people underneath him writing the tertiary books. But he is still creating the whole universe. However, you need an editor at the top who's overseeing everything to make sure it all makes sense. And I think that is where DC falls apart, is because their editorial for years has been either non-existent or completely hands-off or incompetent. I don't know what it is, but they just gave Scott Snyder the keys to the kingdom and said, do whatever the hell you want. And then death metal and like all this stuff happened. And now Future State, which is not his fault, but it is the result of all this stuff that has come from the last few years. And none of it made a lick of sense. None of it had any lasting impact, as far as I know, because they're just going to reset everything for the 4th time in 10 years.
And I love Hermenio's comment here. Editors have a lot to do with a lot of things we see. And I feel like it's one of those hard things to put a finger on when you know something's not working, because it's easy to point at an artist or a writer or whatever, but pointing at an editor is complicated because you don't know how much. So for me, like you said it really well when you're trying to say it's hard to know what the editor is doing wrong, but it's usually one of two things: either too much hands off or too much hands on. It's
right.
A really talented editor, like a gardener,
can make or ruin a story.
right? They nurture a talent into becoming the best it can be so that it bears fruit like a gardener. And a really good editor is invisible. And a really bad editor is got a fist on those characters and basically just saying, no, don't do that. No, don't do that. I got to control what you're doing. And another version of a bad editor is someone who's like, yeah, just go do whatever you want.
Right. And you can extend this analogy to movies as well, where you notice a very bad editor and you can notice a very good editor, but someone who's just doing their job really well, you should not notice them on the movie. Same thing with like costume design, makeup design, sound design. If someone screws up one of those things, it's going to stand out like a sore thumb. If someone crushes it, you're going to say, wow, those costumes were really impressive. But if someone is just doing a great job and doing the service for the movie, it's just going to be part of the movie and you're not going to think about it.
Yeah.
And that's how an editor should be in comics. They should let the writers do their thing, but, mold it a little bit to make sure that it's not going off the freaking rails.
Absolutely. Now, I will say I've probably read more Future State than you. I think I've read 4 different issues, but 2 of them being here in the Wonder Woman. Sorry, Perry was in here. Hi, Perry. Didn't mean to skip you, brother. He probably left when he heard me bashing DC a little bit. I appreciate you coming by. So 2 of the issues I read were just Jones. And Perry and I did talk together the other day about this particular issue because both of us were excited for issue 2 and then kind of like, oh, issue 2 didn't pay off in the way we were kind of hoping. Not that it was garbage. It just felt like, yet again, bad editing that just wasn't making the story everything it could have been.
But again, going back to my first point, it's just like what they did with Black Label. They said, well, here's Black Label. Okay, what is that? Well, we don't really know yet, but we're going to put it out and see where it goes. I feel like that's what they did with Future State, where they're like, what is Future State? Well, it's just, it's like Elseworlds, but it's not because it's in continuity, but it's not if we decide that we don't want it to be. But, it probably is. And like, as someone's a DC Universe fan, what are they to make of this? What are they looking for moving forward? If this was a jumping on point to say we're really refreshing the universe and we're jumping ahead 1,000 years or 50 years or however many years we want to jump ahead for each of these characters to tell new and fresh stories with these superheroes, because honestly, at this point, very few superheroes, it doesn't matter who's in the suit because the heroes have become the suit. Like we know Bruce Wayne is Batman. We know Clark Kent is Superman, but Batman is the cape and the cowl and Superman is the S on his chest. Like you can put anyone in those suits and it's still the superhero. So you could just say, all right, I think this would be a wild thing to do, but you could say, all right, we're jumping ahead 100 years and here are, this is just what the universe is going to be now. It's a fresh start. Some things will stay in continuity because it's just in the past, but it's not the focus anymore and we're starting from zero. Or you can say, this is a jumping off point because we are jumping ahead in the future and then some big event is going to happen that creates this new universe that will end up leading to this, and this is like a end of the movie at the beginning of the movie thing where you see what happens at the end and then you find out how you get there. But as far as I know, they haven't said anything. They're just like, oh, this is just a fun weird thing we're doing for 2 months so we don't have to publish our real books.
I think because the truth is, they were in crisis mode. They had planned this big thing, and then their finances took a bigger dip than they were expecting, and audience reaction to 5G was so extreme that they scrambled, and this is what they made out of it. They like a dad who fell asleep before making dinner and woke up just before bedtime and realized he had to make his kids dinner. It's like, I'm trying to make whatever meal I can make out of what's left in the kitchen.
Right.
And then forget selling it. They're just trying to put it out there and see what happens. And if somebody hits, like Yara's somewhat popular, it seems, they're like, sure, we'll figure out a way to bring her in. Sure. Anybody that's not, you can just count on them disappearing in the wind.
Yeah, but if they do give her a series, which sounds like they are, if that's the case, is Joelle Jones going to be doing it? Because if not, then they're just going to put some rando on it, and people are not going to like it. It's like this. They have a huge cash cow in Harley Quinn, and they don't seem to ever put their top tier talent on Harley Quinn because they know it's going to sell already. So who cares? But hey, if you put a great team on Harley Quinn, then people are going to buy it more. But if you put a great team on, a Hawk Girl book, people are going to buy that more too, hopefully, because people are going to hear that it's great.
And I think, I read the Jones Catwoman. I was really involved and interested in that. And it seemed like editorial blew it in that moment. They let her write and draw the stories, and she got 5 issues in. And then I think the workload became what it does at a mainstream company like that. And rather than letting her pace it out so that she could continue doing it, they brought other people in. And before long, she was just doing she was getting a story credit.
Yeah.
And a cover. She would do a cover. And I would imagine something like that could easily happen if she's going to work on a Yara Wonder Woman book.
Right. It would start off with her, and then it would slowly fade away. Gore brings up a good point. It says young lit writers, for example, have been brought on board or out of their depth. I feel like that's the case every time they bring in a novelist or a real writer into comics, where it's like, just because you write doesn't mean you can write comics. Because that's like saying, oh, you paint? Well, you can probably do photorealism then, right? Like, no, not necessarily. Like, writing is not writing. There are many different forms that it takes. And just like you can write a children's book really well, but you might not be able to write a novel. You can write a novel really well, but you probably can't write a comic really well because it is specific in its genre. So yeah, they bring in these writers who are popular and very talented, but then you give them a comic and they crap the bed because they don't know what they're doing in the genre. And furthermore, they probably don't know about the universe either. So they're just like, oh, I'm just going to tell this story. It's like, it doesn't work.
Well, I think also it's, like you're saying, every medium is going to be different and have its own challenges. Story is story, and there's a universality to some of that, but at the same time, not, it's one thing to write a novel where it's all you and your editor. But the second you get into a comic where there's an artist and working together to try to tell a story visually, where your writing basically vanishes and what the final product is really what that artist is putting on the page. There's a symbiotic relationship there that could easily flounder with somebody who's not experienced with doing that. Like I would be at a loss.
Right. And I've been saying this for years. It's the same thing for artists. Like, how many times do you hear people say something like, oh, that guy can draw really well, he should do a comic book. Like, just because you can draw really well doesn't mean you can tell a story visually.
Well, it's that cover artist versus interior artist thing, right? I mean, I've never seen Jenny Frison do a full comic on the interior.
And maybe she would be brilliant, but I have no proof or no evidence to say, oh, Jenny Frison should do a whole book because she would knock it out of the park. I can't say that because she, is basically a pinup artist and an excellent one, and that's nothing wrong with that. Like,
but the expectation that anybody could do what's the oh my god, now we're in Ratatouille world, right?
yeah,
Anyone can cook doesn't
right.
mean that everybody should cook.
Good cook.
Doesn't mean that everyone can be a great chef, but it means a great chef can come from anywhere, right?
Right. Exactly.
The depth of Ratatouille is real.
Well, Pixar, they know what they're doing.
But they probably can't write a comic book.
Probably not.
So, I mean, we've done 2 books. We've dove deep into a larger swimming pool here. I'm happy to throw a 2-minute review on Mirka Andolfo's new book, which is a disaster in my opinion, because it doesn't know what it's trying to be, and there's way too much happening in the story. I think this is a train wreck for me. I was really disappointed. Interior art, story, writing, all of it just an absolute disaster. So, but let's get over to Alec, because I know he read another indie this week.
Yeah, I read this Maniac of New York. Not perfect, but read of the week for me out of the stuff I've read so far. It's about this. It starts with in 2016 in Times Square, New Year's Eve. This guy goes on this absolute killing rampage with these sword-looking things and kills like 80 people or something and gets away, and has been terrorizing New York City for the last 4 years. And there's a list at the end of like all of his kills, or and they're all like 5 murders plus at a time. And he just for some reason is just this ghost that no one can seem to track down. And it follows these 2 characters, this detective and this kind of person who gets put in charge of the task force for the mayor's office. And they kind of meet each other and kind of find out that they have this common connection with not directly with the killer, because no one knows who it is, but they have a connection to the killer through things that the killer has done. And so that they kind of are clearly going to team up to try to catch this guy. And it ends with another huge bloody murder scene. It's a cool setup. The characterizations were good. The art was fitting for the story. Not perfect, but I thought it was a really cool book.
I was going to say, I was mostly disappointed by my books this week, so I don't know that I even have a read of the week. I thought Thunderbolts was probably my read of the week if I had to count it, because I didn't read it till this week. But yeah, so now I got to go hunt down that one. I already bought too many books this week. This is bad. Although I have not read.
Not perfect is high praise for me. Yeah. All right, that's about as good as it gets.
I feel like I keep skipping or freezing. I don't know if it's me or you or what.
Yeah, I don't know.
All right. But I haven't read Far Sector, and some people told me it was a really great issue this week. So I got that one still on the list. We should wind it down. I think we've been going for a good long while.
Yeah, and I've yelled too much for this week.
Hey, wouldn't be book club with a couple of good hot take rants.
Yeah.
Anything coming up? I know we're skipping this week in D&D, so no D&D coming for you.
Yeah, because it's the Superb Owl this weekend, if you guys didn't know.
Very exciting. John is glitchy. I've been very glitchy. My wife's on some shows or something.
But yeah, so I've got nothing going on until next Wednesday.
I just dropped a video unveiling my first statue. There he is. So if you want to watch that unboxing, I just dropped that a few hours ago. And then I've got my pull list video tomorrow. And then I think I'm off on Friday. And then I'm doing a couple things on Saturday, free on Sunday. And then Comic Gories on my channel is the next time I'm doing a live show. So that's Monday, I'm doing the next episode of Comic Stories.
I after Comic Stories this now a week ago, I took pictures of all of my like what I would have chosen picks to put on Instagram, and I just never did it.
Now you can just wait and then drop it a week late or 2 weeks later.
Yeah, to say like, oh, for last time I got this, but there were some good ones. There were some pretentious picks there.
Hey, that's the best part about it. So we're going to bounce out of here, everybody. I don't know that we've made a plan for next week, but there are some good books coming out next week. So you come by around, and we'll let you know what we thought of the new books.
I'm probably going to hate it. Spoiler alert.
Hey, we'll take our shots.
If history has told us anything, percentages count for anything. Chances are I'm not going to like the book.
It's fair. That's
Whoops.
fair. Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Thanks for coming, and we'll see you guys next week on Alec's channel.